Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, November 21st, 2025, and today we are talking about evaluating a new garden plot, finding that startup capital, and it's Feedback Friday. So let's do it. All right, happy Friday, growers. I hope you all are doing well and that your weeks have been fun, glorious, and all the things that you wanted them to be. I am still a bit on the tired side, having not really had a day off, well, recently, I guess, but that changes this weekend, so I'm looking forward to that. Otherwise, I went ahead and got that seeding done that I had talked about yesterday for the winter. I have a couple beds I'm going to fill with lettuce, spinach, and then I'll later also some carrots into them and just kind of see what March crop we can get out of it. Like most places in the world, that hunger gap in February and March is definitely a challenge for us here in Kentucky for fresh produce. And I mean, it can snow through like April and hit single digits, like that would be -12 or colder in Celsius through March. So you just never really know how it's going to go. It can either be, 9 degrees in the middle of March, or you just don't even get another frost from March until the next November. So both are equally likely anymore. So that's fun. Anyway, it is Friday, which means Feedback Friday, where we explore what you all were saying on this week's topics. On Monday, we talked about gravel mulches and storing seeds. I liked this from @Gibby Rocker Hunter, who wrote, quote, "Vineyards and orchards have used stones on the soil for quite a long time, although I have never heard of it referred to as quote unquote mulch. Like mulch, it's used in part as weed suppression and water/nutrient retention, at least when it comes to using pore stones and minerals. That being said, the general reason is to warm the roots. Another use I have seen that could be related is an old timer would grab a few buckets of local broken down red volcanic rock every year, then spread it on tomato beds early in the year, right about when he got the plants in the ground. Added compost mixed with mulchy leaf mold stuff on that. Then at the end of the year, he raked and bagged the topsoil to be used as seed starting soil for everything the following spring. He had one of the most prolific gardens I've ever seen." End quote. Thanks. And I don't know with the rock thing if it's like full blown like volcanic rocks or like you said broken down. If it's not broken down, I'm assuming he rakes the rocks aside. But anyway, that's a very interesting use of rocks. I love that. I also appreciated this from @OneHubCapFarm, who wrote, quote, "Years ago, I used pea gravel in the paths in what was to be a sort of formal flower garden. I had visions of England and South Carolina. It didn't go too well. I think I laid down some sort of cheap landscape fabric underneath, the kind they sell at big box stores for cheap that doesn't last a season. Anyway, weeds came up through the fabric and through the gravel and grew anyway because that's how things go in South Carolina. My toddlers enjoyed throwing the rocks out of the paths. It was a nightmare and I never wanted to do it again." End quote. Good stuff. Thank you. And shouts to South Carolina again for hosting Hannah and I with all your unrelenting hospitality. Really enjoyed that trip on this past weekend. So shouts to you all. On Tuesday, we talked about how compost mulch acts differently in different regions. Different approach to non-profiting and getting good brassica heads in hotter climates. To the latter topic, @Doulette7960 wrote, quote, "I've been most successful growing brassicas as a fall crop in Zone 8A, South Carolina. Best schedule for broccoli here is to seed indoors late July, transplant in the field by early September, grow under light shade cloth through September or until high temps are consistently below 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Main heads are harvested in late October for early varieties like Green Magic and by late November for the latest varieties. We usually don't drop below 25 degrees here until December, so covering is unnecessary until then. And that's mainly for side shoot production through winter. Spring broccoli is definitely possible if indoor sown by early February and set out in March. Summer weather begins in May here and can be challenging to harvest quality broccoli then." End quote. So there you go. A good warm climate strategy there for your heading broccolis. And another South Carolinian, so shouts to that. On the compost mulch stuff that day, @Daniel Johnson wrote, quote, "I used the deep compost mulch in Northern California where the summers are very hot, and I really didn't have any issues with the beds getting too hot. As long as they were moist and they didn't get too hot. The biggest problem I had was sourcing compost that was finished enough to plant into, as most commercial compost isn't quote unquote finished, end quote. Thanks. And the finished compost thing is definitely a thing. A lot of the big bulk composters are just trying to move that stuff through before it's really fully done. So if you get it and it smells like manure, that's unfinished compost and it needs to chill for a bit before you spread it, or preferably before you plant into it. If you do spread it early, it just, takes some time to settle. Anyway, that day at James Dunmore also asked what Patreon tier to subscribe to in order to ask questions, suggest topics for the podcast episodes. And the answer is any of the paid ones. There's a thread there at patreon.com/no-till-growers where you can plug a question into the comments or just message me there directly to get a question into the queue. I'm usually about a month out or so on questions. Starting at $2 a month for unlimited questions seems like a sweet deal to me, but I don't know. I'm a little biased, obviously. On Wednesday, we were joined by the great Dan Breezebois to talk a little seed stuff. We talked about peppers, and at AGB.822, probably not the real name, wrote, quote, I suppose it's patented or whatever, but I would be extremely interested in an open pollinated version of Carmen that's stable and consistent. I'm wondering if it's possible to develop one from a hybrid like that, end quote. Thanks. And so Carmen is not actually patented. Fun fact. It's just an F1 hybrid. But I have saved seeds from it before and got a couple plants that resembled Carmen's. If I'd really taken the time, I probably could have, stabilized a pseudo Carmen, open pollinated version. Just takes work and patience, but yes, it can be done. At Paul Shell 1729 wrote about that interview, quote, dang, did Jesse just get out nerded? What world is this, end quote. And yes, I almost certainly did, as I do every time I have Dan on. As they say, always surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, and you will turn out at least as weird as I am. I at least think that's how the saying goes. Great feedback, as always, when Dan joins the show, and make sure to follow his work over at the Seed Farmer podcast. Finally, on Thursday, we talked about vermicompost and frosts, lowercase frost. Vermicompost definitely does not keep me away, probably the opposite. We also talked tool maintenance and prepping the garden for perennials. To the last topic, at Amy Signetti wrote, quote, another factor to take into consideration when planting fruit trees is drainage. In time, that level of tilling may lead to considerable settling. Depending on your soil type and what you are planting, you may want to consider loosening the soil, but then building up. We have heavy clay and our fruit trees have done better planted in a berm. Good luck with your orchard, end quote. Yeah, that's good advice there. Also, one of the comments came in from a Wrexham fan, and at David Penfold wrote, quote, great episode as ever. Oh, apart from the Wrexham love, yours a Tranmere Rovers fan, end quote. All right, so why not have some good old-fashioned football beef breakout in the comments section of a farming podcast? Love it, fully endorse it. Anyway, you all rock, which is absolutely no surprise. You always rock. Love the commentary and contributions, and love the recipes as well. That green powder looked awesome. Good stuff. Keep sending those and or your 20-second farm video clips to farmermike@no-tillgrowers.com. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, evaluating the new garden, BRB. Today's episode is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Johnny's Selected Seeds is a proud supporter of Growers Daily. At Johnny's, they do more than sell seeds. They grow them. They trial them to see how they perform on Johnny's research farm in Maine and across the U.S. and Canada. Only the best varieties are added to their catalog and website. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seedling to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. JohnnySeeds.com. That's JohnnySeeds.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmhand. Farmers who partnered with Farmhand say they grew an average of 63% this year because it's more than software. Farmhand is your business coach and assistant, helping to sell out, save time, and grow smarter with real data from real farms, shaping websites that convert, campaigns that sell, and fulfillment systems that run smoothly. Curious what that looks like? Meet the founder, Ari, at farmhand.partners/no-till and see the same insights and support the fastest growing farms rely on every week. That's farmhand.partners/no-till. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. I will try to get to questions from everywhere the questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Pastor Earl, who writes, quote, when starting a new garden in an area that has 6 inches of lush and native grass that hasn't been touched in 40 years, how does one know if it should be, for the best results, tilled once to kick things off? I plan to mow and prep next month and tarp for the winter and get her done in the spring, end quote. All right. Thanks, Earl, and great question. So this is something that I think is really important to understand. It's that how to evaluate a new garden area question that I often think gets overlooked or passed over, but can really make or break the whole, gardening experience. So let's do a quick rundown / breakdown of what I do when I look at a new garden area to evaluate what the heck to actually do with it. The first thing is, at least if you're here in the US, to look at the NRCS Web Soil Survey and see what, if anything, you can glean about the land. On our last property, for instance, it showed that we had a large outcropping of rocks all around the border, which was helpful to know because it meant it was probably, not going to be worth trying to set gardens up there. So for me, trying to figure out how much land we needed to use or could use, that gave me a better idea. And indeed, it was very rocky in those areas and unusable. So now I will be really straight up about this. On the new farm, there was actually some fails within the web soil surveys that actually kind of hampered things in the beginning. I put a little too much faith in them. Specifically, the web soil survey said we would be on great soil with great drainage, and in parts of our farm, that's actually true. But one thing that survey can't necessarily account for is previous land use. And the land here was heavily compacted from animals and some previous tractor usage. Plus, as a bonus, some drainage tile that led right into the garden area. So that was neat. It will tell you what type of soil you have, but not necessarily the state of that soil. So that was a bit on me. Anyway, that didn't show up on the survey, but can show up if you do the right tests on your own after you look at the survey. One is a compaction test. This can be done with a needlessly expensive penetrometer, or it can be done, like I always say, with a piece of rebar at a moderately moist time of year, but not soaking wet time because stuff is less compacted when it's soaking wet. Basically, can you plunge the rebar 8 or so inches into the soil, into the native prairie area that you were talking about without too much trouble, or does it stop a few inches down? If the latter, then you have some compaction that may need to be addressed with a one-time tillage. And then comes the soil test. That soil test will give you an idea of soil organic matter and nutrient makeup. If the soil organic matter is low and the nutrition needs some serious work, especially if the soil is also compacted, that should be your indicator that, maybe you should work some compost and nutrients into the soil to get things started off on the right foot or the left foot, not to leave out Messi or Holland or any other professional football players that may, one day want to start gardens. Then there is the drainage test, essentially also in a reasonably moist time of year. You dig a hole that's roughly 12 inches deep and 18 diameter. Then fill that hole with water, let that drain, then fill it again. That second filling should drain out within 12 hours preferably. If it takes longer than that, or if it takes closer to 24 hours, that's not great. That may mean you have some drainage issues that may need to be addressed. If it drains out super quickly, that could mean that you have like sandy soil, but it could also just mean like way too much drainage. That may also need some help, like compost with, for water retention, build up that soil organic matter. The only other thing I might add is weeds. Look at what weeds you may be dealing with, especially like if you're going from a prairie. Is it Bermuda grass? Is it Johnson grass? Like what kind of perennial weeds may you be fighting there? That is good to know. That may determine how you go about setting up those gardens. It may take you a little longer to actually start them than you want to, just because you really need to manage that, perennial weed bank. If it's on a slope, you may also want to evaluate the degree of slope. And if it's steep at all, consider terracing. Honestly, I almost wish we had just terraced our property that we're on now. I still could, obviously, but I've done a lot of work on it, so I kind of don't want to. If we'd done that in the beginning, I think I would have had to do less work on it. So that's something. For me, it's the low nutrients and not draining well. That's when I kind of feel like I need to intervene. Anyway, what say you all? How do you all evaluate a new plot? Let us know. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, money, 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 money. You said it. You did the money part. Money. Anyway, be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by High Mowing Organic Seeds. High Mowing Organic Seeds is celebrating their 30th anniversary with 47 fabulous new varieties for 2026. Highlights include downy mildew-resistant cucumbers, a poppy that looks like cotton candy, and 12 new tomato varieties. High Mowing offers more than 750 varieties of certified organic, non-GMO vegetables, flowers, herbs, and cover crops, all trialed for optimal performance in organic growing systems. High Mowing has the professional quality seeds and supportive grower reps to get you from seed to harvest. Visit highmowingseeds.com to request a catalog and use code 26NOTILL, all one word, 26NOTILL, for 10% off your order of $100 or more. That's highmowingseeds.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Marble Seed.
The Marbleseed Organic Farming Conference attracts a wide range of regenerative and organic farmers for 3 days of skill development and community building. Farmer Drew Kramer said, "Going to Marbleseed was so invigorating at a time when I needed it most. I picked up tools I'm already using." The conference is the final week in February in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Early registration opens December 4th at conference.marbleseed.org. That's conference.marbleseed.org. All right, back to the show.
All right, so wanting to start a new farm and having the money to start a new farm are two different things. And I'm not going to go too much into the whole whether or not you should even start a farm stuff because do that a lot on this show. Honestly, I would say most people probably don't need to start farm businesses, in my opinion, at least not right off the bat, or maybe even on their own, and definitely not without growing experience. But that is for other shows. This one, I just want to talk about where farm startup capital can come from and how people raise money for starting farms. To be clear, Hannah and I raised almost no money when we started our farm, and frankly, we still feel the effects today of being undercapitalized to begin with. So when I go back and think about how I would have liked to, start this whole thing differently, at least on the financial side of things, I think about how much slower I wish we'd gone. I wish we had started out gardening on a small scale, maybe even selling some microgreens to chefs while we worked normal jobs and raised a certain percentage of our own capital. That way, we were not only getting the experience that we needed, gardening and selling and packaging and all that stuff, and perhaps developed a little bit of clientele, but also could have started with less pressure to be making a profit right off the bat. That to me is the lowest risk, right? Like the risk there is that maybe you don't get your farm in the amount of time that you thought you would, but at least you are not at risk of losing that said farm or your dream dying out for a lack of funds. And you can always, just even when you're farming, maintain a side gig, to get the capital you need in the first year or two of farming, which is especially true because most market farms at least do best when they have a full year to be prepared. Building infrastructure and the garden space, etc. Again, my mentor used to say it's hard to work on a moving train. So before that train gets moving, get all the work done that you can. Next, or at least another option, is perhaps customer loans. Many CSA farms, for instance, will ask customers for loans in exchange for food or just at no interest to buy tools, tractors, etc. Obviously, that has risk too, and there should be, that should be put into a simple contract. But that is better than going to a bank if you have that option. Before ever going to a bank too, growers should first go to the extension office and check in about the availability of low interest operational loans. Yes, loans are and can be scary, and you should have a great business plan and growing experience before you ever take one out. But they can also really open up the potential of a business. We were loan averse for a long time, and I'm honestly, to some extent, kind of happy we were for a little while, even if we were loan averse for a little bit too long. We got fairly good at growing before we, took out our first loans with pretty primitive techniques, and then we finally got a loan for a BCS walk-behind tractor. And so the return was actually kind of swift, and we got that thing paid off fairly quickly. There are also various small farmer grants out there that can help with specific things like fencing, high tunnels, tools, etc. Conferences are a great place to learn about your local ones in terms of those grants and, various lending opportunities and that sort of stuff. Or, like I said, the extension office. Of course, I do just want to emphasize again that this is an expensive business. It's not a high profit business. It's a difficult business, and you should have some experience before diving into both farming and business, if I'm allowed to break the record for the number of times the word business is used in a single sentence. Also, don't overlook the potential of working with other growers in a collaborative model. Another thing that I've seen floated that I kind of like for the right person is starting out as a distributor or aggregator of fresh food, building up a clientele that way, and then slowly beginning to produce more of what you want to sell at a farmer's market or through a CSA or through a store or whatever. That could be a good way to get the farm business off the ground without ever having any real ground yet, and it's much lower risk. Anyway, I'm sure there are some simple, capital ideas out there that I overlooked, but I will leave those to the comment section to flesh out over the weekend, which, speaking of, starts now. So, peace out, Friday. It's time to get our rest on, for me at least. Don't forget, No Till Growers is now officially a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle, notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music and Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soul Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support this work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, you sign up in the month of November, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Jordan Chavis, Branching Traditions, Kyle Richardville, Patrick Weaver, Alex and Oliver, Bill King, Chris Yates, and Ian at Grindstone Farms. All right, huge shouts to the new Patreon members this month. It's really picked up, and I'm just so thankful for each and every one of you. Absolutely, every day. You're just amazing. You will remember our heroine of this week's story. Rebecca has been asked to join the Cat Troll dinner party, and if you're like, what now? Then you will have to go back and listen to the rest of the week's episodes, because that is indeed a bizarre sentence, and frankly, it was a bizarre situation for Rebecca. But you know, these cat trolls seem genuinely warm and nice, and the dish the hot rod cat troll had brought smelled frankly pretty good. So Rebecca decided, what the hey, why not check it out? And so she walked to the back of the hotel where there was a giant barbecue happening with numerous cat trolls, but also about 3 to 4 humans just like drinking cocktails and chatting with the cat trolls. There was even a little soccer game going on, which you know I love, on, you know, like the with the young cat trolls. Very cute, very competitive as well. And so Rebecca hung out with him for a bit and then asked the obvious question, how is it possible no other humans really know you all are here? And the office clerk, Cat Troll, said, well, our best guess is that most humans only see kind of what they want to see and would rather believe in Bigfoot than the magic all around them every day. And with that, they made a toast, and the hot rod Cat Troll drove Rebecca back to Le Chat Noir, where Rod was still waiting, worried, but relieved, and thanked the Cat Troll, never once actually acknowledging him. The hot rod Cat Troll then winked at Rebecca and sped off. All right, thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you Monday for Monday's episode of this podcast. It'll be great. Bye.